Hello and welcome to yet another lesson of our IELTS for Beginners course. Today we will be focusing on the third component of IELTS, that is IELTS writing. IELTS writing is quite different from IELTS listening and reading in a sense that if you are not an active writer in your daily life, it might become a little bit trickier for you, and you might need additional practice, and you might need to refresh your memory of grammar, sentence structures, and a little improve your vocabulary a little bit to score a higher band in IELTS writing especially. However, before doing that, you need to understand what IELTS writing is. If we have a general overview of the test component, you will get total 60 minutes for both writing task 1 and writing task 2. There are two main tasks in IELTS writing that you have to complete within the 60 minutes time frame. The writing task 1 is simple in a sense that you only have to write 150 words, not more than that. And you have to count each word to make sure that these are only 150 words and not more than that. For writing task 2, you will be writing an essay, and it can be anywhere between 250 or 260 words, to be honest. In between those two margins would be a good response, a good essay. There are some differences between IELTS academic writing and IELTS general training writing as well, which you need to consider. Depending on what type of test you are attempting, there will be differences in the writing task 1. Writing task 2 would be the same for both general and academic tests because it is an essay on a topic that you have to write about, while task 1 for academic is data description. Data description in the sense that you would get a graph, a chart, a map, a process diagram, or a table with certain data, and you have to describe whatever it is that you notice in that data description. While in general training, you would be writing a letter. The letter can be formal, informal, semi-formal, depending on what type of questions you would get. And for both parts, that is a major difference. However, the word count remains same. Whether it is the data description or whether it is the letter writing, you only have to write 150 words and not more than that. Now let's move on and have an overview of IELTS writing task 1, especially the academic portion. In here, you will be describing visual information. You might use data from graphs, charts, and tables, and you will focus on the overview as well as the key trends. If you start describing each and every point that you see in the chart or in the table, it will take more words and you will not be able to cover everything within the 150 words limit. So because of that, you have to focus on the key trends, major changes, and stuff like that. Here is an example, a sample question of IELTS academic task 1. You can see here that you are given a line graph. There's a description about the graph. The chart below shows the changes in 3 different areas of crime in Manchester city centre from 2003 to 2012. You are given a certain time period and certain changes. Now, what you have to do is you have to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where relevant. Now, in the instructions, it is clearly stated that you have to focus on the main trends, main changes, major fluctuations that you notice, as well as you have to make comparisons between the 3 aspects that you are given. In this case, it would be burglary, car theft, and robbery. You have to compare one to another and write relevant information, how these aspects change in relevancy to one another, as well as how they change over a certain period of time, which in this case would be 2003 to 2012. Now, if we move on to IELTS writing task general, in this portion, you will be writing a letter. It can be formal, semi-formal, and informal. And the question prompt will tell you what you have to write about, as well as to whom you are writing that letter to. The structure would be same no matter what type of letter you are writing, whether it is formal, informal, or semi-formal. It would start with a greeting, then you would discuss your purpose, details of that purpose, and there should be a closing with your signature. Here is a sample of task 1, general training IELTS. Here the question states that Your order for some expensive garden furniture has finally arrived, but it is late and not on the date originally promised. Some of the items are not inside the boxes. There was no answer when you phoned the office. You need the rest of the order for an event you have planned. Write to the manager of the customer services department at the company. In the letter, describe the problems with the order, explain what you need the company to do, say when this must be resolved by and why. Write at least 150 words. You do not need to write any addresses. Begin your letter as follows: Dear Sir, Madam. And that is how you would start it. You would begin with describing the problem and then you would give certain details. Also, you have to make sure that you cover all the 3 points that are listed here. Describing the problem, explain what you need to do, and the deadline or the timeline that you are supposed to set. This is one of the major marking criteria in IELTS writing task, which we will discuss later on. Now let's move on to IELTS writing task 2. Writing task 2 is the same for IELTS academic as well as IELTS general training. In this, you will be writing an essay, which would be about 250 words or 260 words, and out of that 1 hour time frame that you are given for both tasks, it is highly recommended that you allocate 40 minutes for task 2 and only 20 minutes for task 1. Because as I said earlier, that task 2 contributes more to your overall IELTS main score compared to task 1. So it is natural that you would be more inclined to do much more better on task 2 than task 1. Also, task 1 is quite simple compared to task 2, because in task 2 you have to think about the essay prompt, you have to generate ideas, you have to structure it, and you need a lot of time for that. Common types of essay topics that you might get would include your opinion about a certain topic, discussing pros and cons of a certain topic. It can be problem solution essay prompt, in a sense that they might describe a problem in the essay prompt and would like you to suggest certain solutions for that problem. And then there is the advantages and disadvantages prompt as well, where you can compare the advantages, benefits, and the disadvantages of a certain topic. Now let's move on to the sample of writing task 2. Here you can see that there is clearly mentioned in the instructions as well that you should spend about 40 minutes on this task, because they also know that this contributes more to your score. And then there's the topic. Some people think having a university degree is the best way to secure a good job. However, others believe skills and experience are more important. Discuss both sides and give your opinion. Now, here it is clearly stated that you need to discuss both sides. The people who think that university degree is important and the people who think that skills and experiences are more important. Discuss both sides, their views, and then you have to give your opinion as well. If you are not asked for your opinion, just go on with discussing both the sides. If you are asked clearly, as in this question, that you have to give your own opinion as well, so be sure that you include what you think, both in the introduction and in the conclusion. Then back up your claims or your ideas with certain reasons and write at least 250 words. Now let's move on to the scoring criteria. Let's say you have written a wonderful task 1 and a fantastic task 2. You are really satisfied with whatever you have written and you think that you might get a better score. However, when the results arrive, you check your writing scores and you are highly disappointed, which I wish none of you are, but let's suppose you are. Now, there can be certain reasons for this. One major reason can be that you did not consult the writing or the scoring criteria before you attempted the test. So you did not know what aspects of your writing were being tested and what aspects you needed to concentrate on more. For IELTS writing task, there are 4 main aspects that are marked whenever the examiner reads your written responses. The first one is task response. Have you answered all the points that are mentioned in the task or in the question prompt? For example, you have to discuss both sides and give your opinions. If you have only discussed both sides but you have not given your opinion, you have not completely responded to the task. you will lose your marks there. Similarly, coherence and cohesion. Whatever number of paragraphs you have written, are they relevant to one another? Is the flow of ideas coherent, or is it more of a bumpy ride? That also contributes to your scoring. And then there are your lexical resources. Are you reusing one word again and again, or are you changing your vocabulary with every sentence, and you are showing the diversity of your lexical resources? Then there's grammatical range and accuracy. Is your sentence structure good? Are you able to formulate different types of sentences, including simple, complex, compound, and compound complex sentences as well? Also, are your punctuations up to the mark, or have you included a lot of misplaced commas, apostrophes, possessives, and all that stuff? So you have to be careful of all these aspects as well. And this is why IELTS writing can be tricky, because you have to take care of your vocabulary, your grammar, your structuring, as well as the task response. Now that we have understood what IELTS writing is, what are the two tasks, and what is the scoring criteria, let's move on to general writing tips. These are the writing tips that can help you get a better score as well as perform well on your essay. Plan your answers 5 to 8 minutes. Yes, planning your answers, no matter how much time it takes, is one of the best investments that you can make. If you have a well-structured answer, you will eventually get better marks. Writing in itself does not take that much time, but planning that write-up can take time, and you have to use that time efficiently. Do not write just do not just write one single paragraph for task 1 or task 2. You have to break your ideas into different paragraphs. Use clear paragraph structuring to show the examiner that you know how paragraphs and sentence structures work in a write-up. Avoid contractions, because this is a formal academic write-up. You are not messaging someone, you are not emailing a friend where you can use slangs and contractions. This is highly formal, highly academic. So you have to be careful of the type of language that you use. Check your grammar and spelling. Spelling can get you negative marks as well. So check your grammar as well as your spelling at the end of the test. In our next lesson, what we'll do is we will discuss IELTS writing task 1 in detail. We will go through the different types of graphics that you get and how you can plan your response. Till then, what you can do is you can explore different types of IELTS question prompts that are regular in IELTS tests, and try to come up with certain ideas that can be helpful for your write-up. That will help you with ideas generation practice, and eventually you will be able to plan a better response and get a higher score. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next lesson.